Hey, we're here again for Classic Rock, episode number 4. We got Peter Marcum, a hard rock, classic rock, music expert, read every book on the planet about classic rock. We've got Chase Cole, who is an attorney by profession, but who is a classic rock aficionado and very knowledgeable. And you have me, who loves classic rock, but knows a lot more about wine than either of these two guys. Okay? So, Peter, what was the question we decided tonight?
That if there's a siren, will Chase run down the street to find out if there's
Yeah, will Chase leave in case there is an accident somewhere? No, we're holding on to him. Oh, no, the question tonight is, what is classic rock and what isn't? And I'll start by asking these two men this question. Is James Taylor classic rock?
Let me start by saying, first we need to understand what classic rock is. Generally speaking, that term is used to define the playlists on album-oriented rock and roll radio stations that feature mid-60s to 90s rock, okay? There's one problem with that definition, is that it leaves out the guy who started rock and roll when he recorded That's All Right Mama at Sun Records in Memphis, late June, early July 1954, period of time during which I happened to be born. The King, Elvis Presley. How do you leave Elvis out of classic rock?
Now, that's a great question.
That's a really good
But
question.
I never think of Elvis as classic rock. I don't think of Elvis as classic rock because the music he sang was mellow. It didn't have a heavy beat to it. You know, maybe he modified his original kinds of music. You know, it's like Johnny Cash, same place, Memphis, you know. They didn't even have a drum. But, you know, can you argue that some of his songs weren't classic rock? I don't know, you know.
But Elvis came from a blues background. Where he was at Sun Records, blues. Our friend Steve Cropper, rest in peace, it was blues. And then some rock, but he did define rock and roll.
Well, if you talk about his background, you can't not talk about gospel. That's where Elvis started, and then blues. But Elvis is clearly classic, and he's clearly rock. Classic rock, to me, is just a convenience term that radio stations have got. So I like to think about rock and roll and who's classic. And look at this. Is Roy Orbison classic rock? Because he's played with Pretty Woman, a 60s song on classic rock. How could Roy Orbison be and Elvis not be?
You know, and Orbison, you know, he played with the Traveling Wilburys late in his life, and certainly that would have been a classic rock band. I mean, what a great series of songs those guys produced. But, you know, that's why it's so difficult to define classic rock, you know. And so I don't know if we've come to a conclusion on Elvis or come to a conclusion on Roy Orbison or James Taylor. But the truth of the matter is, I think we can have a broad definition of classic rock and still enjoy it. But for me, I think of a band when I think of classic rock, and I mean a real band, not Elton John and the Bobos. I'm talking about a real band. And
How can you not include Elton John? Elton John had a band.
Yeah, I know. That's
Listen
true.
to Madman Across the Water and tell me he's not a rocker.
Well, the first one.
Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting is not a classic rock song.
You know, I don't think of Elton John in his later life as classic rock. Yeah, T for the Tillerman and all of those songs on that first album that he did, classic rock. But I think he evolved away from it. I mean,
You're thinking of Cat Stevens.
Cat Stevens, sure, but he only had... Oh, Cat Stevens, you're right.
Yusuf.
What was the first Elton John album?
Elton John. It was self-titled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is Cat Stevens classic rock? You know,
I have to think he
Not for
is.
me. Not for me.
See, I know. It's like
to me, classic
Peace
rock.
Train.
Great song.
I saw him
It's
one
more
time.
pop folk song to me.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
more
wonderful.
pop
I saw him at the
I agree
Ryman.
with you, Chase.
Wonderful. But I think classic rock on the edges, you've got some people that help that all go along, such as James Taylor, such as Cat Stevens. And
Yeah.
they're all in the era. I mean, what would you call Cat Stevens?
So
pop. And James, I love him. One of my favorite artists of all time. I just can't see him as rock.
Well, he's not rock, but he's classic.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So all this conversation tonight's being fueled by Rhone wine. Rhone is a region in France, over towards Provence, a little bit north on the Rhone River. High, steep hills for vineyards. And we're having a Beaucastel, shutting up the pop, delicious from '09. I'll never forget that they told me '09 was the greatest vintage they'd ever made. And then they said, that was before 2010. And so 2010 was also a great vintage, but Beaucastel, if you're looking for a great value wine, we don't get paid for this. We just love the wine.
We'd like to get paid for it.
We'd like to get paid for it if you know anybody at Beaucastel.
And you can pay us in wine.
And you can pay us in wine, yeah. Or rock and roll.
There you go.
What's
Anyway.
that? How much would that be generally?
I'd say you can find this wine on winesearcher.com. We don't get paid for that either. Winesearcher.com for $120 to $150. It's a great bottle of wine. It's 20 years old. Fantastic. This is really a special wine. We finished it earlier. It's a 98 Hermitage from Chapoutier, and the cuvee is called Le Mille, but it's a 98. So, you know, figure it out. It's 27, 28 years old. It's a delicious bottle of wine. It's 100% Syrah, and it's delicious.
And
It was delicious.
you don't know the house rules here for the podcast, but if there's a serious disagreement, like over James Taylor, we drink more wine.
Ha, 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 ha.
What's
The rule is we go, you're probably right. So when we talk about a definition for classic rock, we include anybody who created a song during that time that had an upbeat. Would you say that's right? From the 60s to the early 90s?
Yes, but once you're in classic rock, they did some sad songs too. Are you?
Take Pink Floyd, for example,
Oh, definitely classic rock.
but mostly ballads,
That's a good point.
Fair enough.
or at least low.
ZZ
tempo
Tops?
ZZ Top
songs.
was.
ZZ Top's classic.
Something about a sharp-dressed man.
I'm not sure ZZ Top knows what a ballad is.
I don't either.
How about? And we talked about this the other night, Chase, about Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Now, in the first half of his career, he played the piano, and he
He
played.
was a piano player?
Yeah, hard to believe. But
Was he blind?
Third Eye.
and then with Superstitious,
Right.
and he started playing the electric
Yeah. Electric keyboard.
keyboard, and everything changed. It was up tempo,
Right.
and he was part of the whole thing.
So was the Spencer Davis group a rock and roll band? I think so.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And little Stevie Winwood?
Little Stevie.
Totally
man.
classic
16
rock.
years old when he sang I'm a Man. Might have been 15.
He was 16 years old when he sang
Give me
Give Me Some Lovin'
Yeah,
too.
that's true.
Yeah, I know that for a fact. He told me.
Yeah.
And for some of you that don't realize, there's a lot of classic rock here in Nashville.
Right.
You know, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Tops is here, and Steve Winwood is here, and
John-
Steve Cropper passed away recently, but he was here.
God rest his
A
soul.
lot of people.
John Kay, Steppenwolf.
Yeah,
Bon Jovi just opened a big bar here.
yeah. Bon Jovi just
Big
opened
bar.
a big bar here. If you like rock and roll and you like country music, you couldn't pick a better place to go than Nashville. We don't get paid from the convention bureau yet.
And in the olden days,
Nope.
you saw Dwight Yoakam doing Suspicious
Yeah.
Minds. They rocked out.
Well, if
Travis
you want to
Tritt
get paid
rocked
by the
out.
Convention Business Bureau, maybe we talk about country music a little bit. I had the pleasure, as you know, Tom, of seeing Steve Earle on Saturday at this Poets and Prophets thing. And Steve says country music is rock and roll. That's
Well, his
a
is,
quote from Steve
but you know, he won his Grammys for Americana,
Sure.
and Tony Brown, my good friend,
who signed him.
signed him and produced him.
Mhm.
But anyway, that'll be another night. We'll talk about Tony Brown.
So
But-
y'all ran away from my Stevie Wonder question.
no, I say
Listen, I got a testimony.
Okay.
I saw him open for the Stones at the Municipal Auditorium
well. That's
on the Exile on Main Street tour in 1972 for my 18th birthday. And if the Stones have him on the bill, don't you think he's got to be kind of rocking?
so. What about
That's my-
Prince? Is Prince rock and roll?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But now, wait a minute. Just contradict himself. Prince is just Prince. Got to have a band. If you got to have a
I think he
band,
had a band. He just could play he could play
he
better
had
than
a
his whole
band.
band.
We know he had a band.
And what about then Michael Jackson? So I just want to say
That's a
this.
good
There are
question.
3 artists in the history of music, any genre that you want to name, that have sold 250 million records as a band and 250 million records as an individual. Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson are 2 of those 3. Phil Collins is the 3rd, but
Really?
is Phil Collins rock and roll? Is Genesis rock and roll?
Genesis had.
I think yes to Phil. I can't give Michael a ticket.
Ah, ha, ha, ha.
I loved him. R&B, pop, not rock and roll.
Okay, I can go with that. I can easily be swayed. Although, who would include anybody that sold 200, almost 1,000 records, band and individual? Who would not want to include him because he came in our time, in our genre, you know?
And I'm going to agree with you, Chase. He was, I mean, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if you said he's classic rock, but really he's pop.
He's pop
You're
and
right,
R&B.
he's pop. I agree.
And,
But the
and,
best ever pop, maybe.
and you
Maybe.
could say the same about Stevie, but Stevie's music, particularly as you indicated later in his career, tended a little more towards rock than Michael's did, I thought.
And so I just want you guys to know next week what we're going to talk about is some of the great women vocalists. We're going to talk about Annie Lennox, Eurythmics. We're going to talk about Queen. I mean, not Queen. We're going to talk about Pat Benatar. We're going to talk about
Janice.
Bonnie Tyler. We're going to talk about Janis Joplin. We're going to talk about Stevie Nicks.
I hope Linda Ronstadt.
And Linda
Here's
Ronstadt.
another question.
Yeah.
She
well,
was-
when she was Stone Ponies, when she was at the Stone Ponies, that's a rock band.
Well, and her backup band at the Troubadour back in the day was the Eagles.
Yeah.
So if the Eagles are in, she's in. And if, as you and
Well,
I
you know the Eagles are in.
Well, the Eagles are in.
But
And
there's
that mean-
Blondie and Joan Jett.
Deborah Harry.
And I mean, Deborah. Yeah.
And my
We've got
favorite, Chrissy Hine, the Pretenders.
Pretenders. I love the Pretenders.
Oh,
and
my
we're going to
God.
talk about that next time.
Yeah.
And so tune in for some more wine and some more fun talking about classic rock. That's what we're talking about, classic rock.
Did we ever decide on James Taylor?
We did.
I think he's in. And you know what? Who else is not in? Who was also
Jackson
selling-
Brown.
But I think if the Eagles are in, Jackson's in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just same
I
logic
think
as Linda.
you can't. How do you not
How do
put
you
these
not?
people in that are tangential and central to the bands? Very.
But here's my favorite female artist of all time. And I hope we can talk about her in Women in Rock, whether you consider her rock or not, Joni Mitchell.
So I don't consider her rock, but I grew up with Joni Mitchell, and she has very important moments in my life.
Same.
I came across a child of God. She was walking along the road,
You told me that. I didn't realize she had written
and I
that
asked
song.
her to tell me.
She wrote the Woodstock song, and she could not be there. Guess why? For extra points and extra one.
She was pregnant.
Good guess, not true.
I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but something Tom and I wanted to say was,
Oh, you're not going to answer
I
my
thought we
trivia
already
question?
wrapped up.
oh, I will. But a lot of people have emailed us saying, are we going to sell out to HBO and take the show on cable?
I
think
told them no.
At this point, that's what we agreed on.
We have turned down every offer we've been given so far. And we have an attorney here to negotiate for the better offers. And so far, he said, wait for the big boys.
That's right.
Go ahead.
All right.
The reason Joni was not at Woodstock was that she had an appearance scheduled on the Dick Cavett show, and she didn't want to cancel.
Well,
And she regrets it to this day.
she missed out.
Guys,
Here's to you. Here's
the
to
wine,
classic rock.
the
And
wine
here's
is
to great wine.
fantastic.
The
Rock
wine is
on.
great. Rock on. Let's have some pizza.